co-defendants are facing 20 to 25 years for their nonviolent symbolic disarmament action against the Trident nuclear weapons system.
They have told the truth despite the cost. They've taken their actions despite the risks, and they still have more consequences to go in their efforts to try to save all of our lives.
Trident is the most deadly weapon on the planet, and the United States has 6 of them at home port in Kings Bay Naval Base in southeast Georgia.
My mom was from Chicago, my dad's from New York City. He's first generation. His parents were from Ireland, immigrated from Ireland in the 1920s. They learned about Catholic social teaching, about the care for other human beings, the care for the earth, the care for the worker. My father ran for Congress in the Bronx here in 1968. Against Mario Biaggi. It was in the primary. He did not win that primary. He didn't have the backing of the Democratic Party. In 1973, my family moved to Ithaca because my father was a sociologist and he was teaching at Ithaca College, which is how our family ended up in Ithaca. So in 1980, I read this, I'm 18 years old, I've graduated from high school, and I see that they've done this action where, you know, the idea is, it's called the Plowshares action because it's based on the Isaiah prophecy in the book of Isaiah. They shall beat their swords into plowshares and their spears into pruning hooks. Nation shall not lift up sword against another nation, and they shall not learn war no more. For me, it was like the first moment that I could see that was sort of hopeful. Then I decided, instead of going to college, that I would do work around nuclear disarmament. How can I be in college right now when the world is in the state that it's in? In November of 1982, we went to Electric Boat Shipyard, which is in Groton, Connecticut, where they build the Trident submarines. They cost $2 billion to build each one of them. That's just to build them. And then those Trident submarines are 2 football fields long, 4 stories high. They carry 24 independently targeted nuclear missiles that have the capacity, the firepower of, if I remember correctly, is something like 2,040 Hiroshimas carried on one Trident submarine. We were part of this Plowshares action where we went to Electric Boat Shipyard and we cut a fence and we went inside the shipyard and went onto the Trident submarines, and at that time they were able to board the submarine and hammer on the missile hatches, and they just hammered off what they called the sound dampening studs. We had some blood, of our own blood, a nurse had taken from us, and we had it in a bottle and we poured it on there. We said the end game of this is death and blood.
I was born in Ithaca, New York. I was actually born at my house in front of many family members and friends in my parents' room in 2002. Well, I grew up seeing a lot of images of innocent civilians murdered in the streets. Like those were things that would be printed out and put up on signs and to say, like, this is immoral, this is illegal, this is just completely unjust and inhuman. And so I've seen those pictures since I was a small child, and they were so deeply disturbing to me. when I was a kid, she would like print out a shit ton of pamphlets downtown before we would like go on whatever protest we were going on, and then she would give me a big stack, and she would make me walk up to everyone around and hand them out, just about the next event or the next protest, or just information about what was going on. Throughout my life, she has tried to get me involved.
And so, you know, our life was about trying to support that work, as well as we have 4 kids, and I was homeschooling the kids. For me, I think it was important as I raised my children for them to be part of the work that I was doing. The work is part of our faith, it's part of our lives and how we live our life.
It was heavy in a lot of ways. It was like, yeah, I have to, like, especially when my dad went to jail, like, I had to live without him for a year. Basically, I would visit him in the prison, like, center, like the visiting room.
Then I hear about Saoirse's dad, who also was part of a Plowshares action. And I'm like, who is this guy? I didn't know anything about him. But then after he served his time for his Plowshares action, he served some time in prison. I was doing this work organizing around anti-nuclear things in my own town in Ithaca, New York, and but I was also connecting with the communities that were doing these Plowshares actions, and that's when I met Saoirse's dad, and we were part of a Plowshares action together in 1982. When Peter and I got married in 1984, part of our vows were to do this work around peace and justice and the works of mercy, and sort of based on what's called the Catholic worker model, this idea that our faith is lived by everybody. Our daily life was interrupted by doing these protests and being, and not just protesting, but trying in lots of different ways to affect change.
The electric boat shipyard that makes the Trident submarines is located in Groton, Connecticut. Basically, we had come there to protest the launching of a small fast attack submarine called the USS Baltimore. Anyway, I thought it would be a good opportunity to make a statement against the nuclear arms race, against nuclear weaponry, weapons of mass destruction. So I climbed into this van that happened to be parked there with the keys in the ignition, and I rolled up the windows and locked the doors, and then I backed the van over close to the rudder of the submarine, and then I proceeded to use the van as a sort of automotive battering ram to smash it repeatedly into the steering mechanism of the Trident. And then the shipyard workers were there, and they saw what was happening, and they called security, and of course they arrested me very quickly and took me away. And went to trial a couple of months later, and was sentenced to a year in the Connecticut jail system there. So that's basically what happened.
He did odd jobs, for the most part, like not odd jobs. He would like cut down trees, help people, like fix people's roofs, paint their houses, that kind of stuff. And he was cutting down a tree one day, and he didn't strap in his safety harness. So what ended up happening was he fell like many feet and like shattered his kidneys and his pelvis, I believe, and he had to be airlifted out to a hospital in Pennsylvania, and he lived for maybe a few hours after that. He was intubated. They tried to save him in a lot of different ways, but it just didn't work. So that's how he ended up dying, and he died when I was like 6 years old. And yeah, in February. Sorry. Yeah, he was an amazing person. He was a really good example for me in a lot of ways. I feel really happy that I have so many similarities to him like about like with language and poetry and all of that. Like I feel really happy that I'm connected to him in that way. And he was a great dad. We would hang out all the time. We would go. They were really just walks down the road, but we would call them expeditions, like from Winnie the Pooh. And we would like pack little like picnics, and we would climb in culverts together. My dad really loved poetry, so when he died, my mom had me memorize a lot of poems that he had known when he was alive. I just picked it up from listening to him around the house. As a decrepit father takes delight to see his active child do deeds of youth, so I, made lame by fortune's dearest spite, take all my comfort in thy worth and truth. For whether beauty, birth, or wealth, or wit, or any of these all or more, entitled in thy parts do crowned sit, I make my love engrafted to this store. So then I am not lame, poor, nor despised, whilst that this shadow doth such substance give, and I in thy abundance am sufficed, and by a part of all thy glory live. Look what is best, that best I wish in thee, this wish I have, then 10 times happy me.
One thing I feel like what was very important to me was not that our lives were just about protest. You know, it was our life is about, I think life is supposed to be about joy as well. And I love music, and I love Irish music. I don't play music, but it was fun to make my kids, not make them, but to encourage them greatly.
I started classical ballet when I was 3 years old, I think. She always says that I'm wrong about the age when I say it, so I don't really know. But I started dancing at a young age. I did Irish dance for a while, and then I also did Irish music and classical music. So I started with Suzuki method violin as a 3-4-year-old, and then I transitioned probably at like 10 years old from classical to exclusively Irish.
And I think that that's a really important piece, that we the fullness of it, right? I love to garden, and I have a big garden, and we grow lots of food and flowers, and that's part of this finding joy. I loved having my children. Now I have some grandchildren too, and just they make me laugh, and they make me so happy. I hope they continue to have joy. I hope that they continue to take care of each other, and I hope that they can see the beauty of this world and the beauty of nature and what's here, and preserve that and save that for many, 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 many generations to come.
It was really important to him that we don't participate too much in like consumerism or just in like the rat race or like the capitalist system, like as much as we possibly could. Like he was a very like smart man, and he could have probably gotten a better paying job than he had, but he didn't want to. He did the work that he did because he wanted to not be a part of that system. What's really important is, you know, that everybody has shelter and isn't being threatened, and has every need that they have met. So that's hopefully what I spend my life doing.